Hi, Grandma here, and I'm reading The Golden Goblet, and I'm reading in the middle of chapter 9, I believe. Chapter 9. In my book on page 141 at the top of the page. Earlier in the chapter, Heqet and Ranofer have an idea to follow Gaboo and his two friends, the river captain Setma and his friend Wenamon. And they are in their green room with the ancient. And Ranofer says at the bottom of 140, "You've not said much of anything at all," Ranofer said uncertainly. "Nay, I have not," the ancient sighed and picked up Heqet's knife to slice a lotus root. "I fear for you two hotheads mixing yourselves up with dangerous business. What if these men catch you spying on them? It would go hard with you." "But we will be very careful," Heqet exclaimed. "I mean to be a spy worthy of any noble's hire. Silent and invisible." He glanced challengingly at the ancient. "Of course, old one, if you are afraid." The ancient's face relaxed into its usual good-natured creases. A slow grin turned into his high-pitched cackle. "May the gods love you, boy. Why should I be afraid? No one takes any notice of an old one-eyed nobody like me. I could tread on a man's heels for weeks before he'd suspect me of being dangerous." "It's the same with us," Heqet argued eagerly. "Who takes notice of boys, especially ragamuffins?" "You are no ragamuffin, Heqet," Ranofer said with an admiring glance at his friend's new shanty, which was of fine woven linen. His own was the flimsiest cotton and tender in every fiber from long wear. "I am no Lord High Fan-bearer either," retorted Heqet, "though of course we both have our natural beauty, as the hippopotamus said to the rat." Heqet snatched up a bunch of grapes and held them across his throat like a necklace, meanwhile assuming an expression of such conceited hauteur that both Ranofer and the ancient burst out laughing. He flung the grapes down and went on. "In any case, I am paid no more attention than 1,000 other boys and thieves, and neither are you, Ranofer. We need no magic to make us invisible as long as we do not actually stumble on anyone's feet. For my part, I'm ready to be Wenamon's shadow day and night, except when I'm at the Gold House, of course. And even there," he stopped and his face lighted with a new idea. "What is it?" Ranofer prodded him. "Why, I've just realized something. I can do much more to help you. You know yourself, Ranofer, when gold is missing from any gold house in the city, the others learn of it, and the smiths warn each other." "Aye, that is true. Rake sent Sata to his brother's shop and others down the street." "Exactly. Very well, then, I will keep my ears open, and I will grow ears like that donkey yonder. If the word comes of thievery in anyone's shop, I will know which one." "Now that is a good plan," the ancient said emphatically. "That will accomplish something possibly." Heqet, the irrepressible, glared at him in an instant and then growled deep in his throat like some very small, fierce dog. "You do not think my spying plan of any value, then?" he demanded. "Aye, of inestimable value," the old man cackled, shaking his head until his thread-like hair quavered. "Spy all you like, young one. You are probably right. No one will notice your antics. You might even find out something." "And you will watch the river captain?" "Aye, I'll watch him, though it will not be a pleasant sight, I assure you." "Then you will watch Gaboo?" Heqet asked to Ranofer. "I will do my best, but I think he will notice if I try to follow him." "Aye, that's a problem in your case, it's true." "No matter, I will try it anyway," Ranofer said. "All he can do is beat me and send me home." He hoped it was true. He did not really know what Gaboo would do if he realized Ranofer was prying into his affairs, and he preferred not to think about it. Something of that sort must have passed through Heqet's mind, for he said uneasily, "Take great care, though. Well, it is all arranged then. We will meet when we can, as always, and tell each other what we have learned. Agreed? Agreed, Ranofer said solemnly. Agreed, the ancient echoed, not solemnly at all. He was still chuckling now and then under his breath, and Ranofer suspected that he looked on the whole plan as a child's game. As they left the little green room to separate to their work, however, he beckoned Ranofer down the path in the direction of the shrunken river, and the familiar twinkle in his eye had vanished. Come with me a moment, young one. He left the path presently and pressed through the trackless growth of rushes and bushes, which he seemed to know as well as Ranofer knew the streets of the Crooked Dog. At a place where the undergrowth ended and the papyrus began, the water's edge in winter, now a stretch of mud, he stopped beside a spreading patch of some low green plant. Stooping, he gathered a handful of leaves and crushed them with a little mud in the palm of one hand. Then he turned Ranofer about and very gently smeared the mixture on his shoulders where the fire still burned. Instantly they cooled. The relief was so great that tears sprang to Ranofer's eyes. He looked wonderingly at the old man, whose gentle touch seemed as great a magic as his salve. The ancient smiled. I've not much wisdom, but I know a few things, he remarked. Now, I want to promise to you about the spine, young one. Will you give in? Aye. Do not follow this Gaboo of yours after full night has fallen. Men can come and go in the darkness, and often no harm comes of it. But you are not a man, and khefts fly away with children, even half-grown boys like you. Do not risk it. It would be better to spend your life as a stone cutter. That is true, ancient. I will not risk it. Well then, be off with you. He is right, Ranofer reflected as he hurried back to the shop. I will tell Heqet too. Heqet fears nothing. He might not even remember about the khefts. A moment later, though, he realized that Heqet would do no dashing about after Wenamon at night, even if he should want to. The doors of the apprentices' quarters were locked and sealed at nightfall, and there was no exceptions to the rule. They would have few hours in the day for following and watching. Still, much could be done between the end of the work and the coming of full dark, which was later now than if they could discover something. Ranofer was determined to begin that very evening. He went directly home at the day's end with none of his usual reluctant dawdling. Gaboo was there. Ranofer could hear him moving about in his room at the top of the stairs, but he did not come down. Why should he, thought Ranofer resentfully. He already has my coppers for the day. He found supper in the storeroom, drank from the water jar, and settled himself under the acacia tree, prepared to watch every motion Gaboo made if he should come out into sight. He did not come into sight for what seemed an interminable length of time. Ranofer's eyelids were drooping, his head nodding, when he heard the upper door suddenly open and footsteps come down the stairs. Every sense alert, he watched Gaboo walk across the courtyard, open the gate, and go out. As soon as the gate closed, Ranofer scrambled to his feet, wincing as the abrupt movement reminded him of his soreness, and ran to the corner of the wall where cracks in the mud bricks and a straggling vine provided a precarious ladder for climbing to the top. Peering over anxiously into the street, he saw Gaboo walking eastward in the direction of the river. Ranofer waited until he was considerable distance down the street, then jumped from his perch, ran to the gate, and let himself out cautiously. Staying close to the walls of houses and courtyards, he followed the distant, bulky figure around a corner and into the thoroughfare, then along the thoroughfare to the beginning of the docks. There, Gaboo turned into one of the several doorways into a solid line of palm-thatched buildings and disappeared from sight. Ranofer gazed blankly at the doorway, over which hung a leather wineskin. He was both relieved and disappointed. He knew what this was. It was Mutra's wine shop. There was nothing very mysterious about Gaboo's going there. He went there often. Still, he might be meeting someone. This might be the place where the thieving plots were laid. It's certain I cannot follow him inside, Ranofer thought. I can watch the door, though. That is what Heqet would do. I will see who goes in to meet him. Across the street, on the stone docks, was a row of overturned fishing boats, draped with nets spread out to dry. Ranofer selected one of the small punts made of bundles of papyrus reeds bound together and crawled under it. Its short prow lifted it at an angle from the stone floor of the docks, and though its shelter concealed him, he could still watch the doorway easily. It was another long wait. Men came and went along the thoroughfare. Several times one went into the wine shop, and after an interval came out. Ranofer knew none of them. Wenamon did not come, nor did Setma, nor did anyone connected with any gold house as far as he knew. The sunset light faded. The street grew dusky, and still Gaboo did not appear. A fat-bellied man waddled out of the shop with a lighted torch, thrust it into a bracket beside the door, and walked back inside. Ranofer began to peer about uneasily, searching the deepening gloom among the boats for possible khefts. At last, when he was thoroughly stiff from his cramped position and almost ready to retreat before the coming of night, the door of the wineskin opened. Gaboo came out and turned immediately toward home. Oh, I must get ahead of him, Ranofer thought. I must get there first so he will not know I've been gone. But how will I do it? What if he is not going home? How can I tell unless I follow right behind him? In a panic, he crawled out from under the punt and raced silently down the street after Gaboo, who walked solidly ahead. When he turned at the end of the thoroughfare, Ranofer was sure he would be going nowhere but back to the street of the Crooked Dog. Dodging into an alley, he ran as fast as he could until he was certain he was ahead of Gaboo. Then he crossed back in the direction of a home by another street and emerged into the street of the Crooked Dog to see Gaboo still some distance away in the gloom. Ranofer flew across the street and into the courtyard, closing the gate as silently as possible behind him. An instant later, he was safe on his mat under the acacia tree, breathless and panting, but lying in an attitude of sleep. In a few moments, Gaboo came in the gate, banged it carelessly with no regard for noise, and climbed the stairs to his room. Ranofer relaxed and gradually regained his breath. He felt considerably flattened by the evening's events. If this was spine, it was anything but an exhilarating occupation. What good was there in crouching under a punt all evening, watching a wine shop door? Moreover, it was no less dangerous for being dull. Still, I must keep up with it, he told himself as he settled more comfortably on his mat. This was only the first evening. Perhaps he will go someplace else tomorrow, or meet someone, or do something suspicious. Perhaps Wenamon and Setma have met tonight, and Heqet will have much to tell tomorrow. He drifted off to sleep, anticipating. Well, I think that he has discovered something that police officers discovered long ago, and that is being on a night watch is very boring. Just sitting in your car, or in his case, under a punt, which is like a boat, waiting for something to happen. It's not all that exciting, really, unless something exciting happens, which may in the next chapter. See you later. Bye-bye.